All right. So this leads us to the third meeting of the evening, which is the meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. So we're going to open the meeting with a roll call by the city clerk, the township clerk.
Here. Brown. Here. Hazen.
Here.
Jacobson. Here. Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin. Okay.
Right. And Mayor Marlin, she's on vacation, so that's why I'm leading this section of the meetings. All right. So first we have the minutes of the previous meeting, June 4th, 2018. It's in your packets. Were there any corrections or additions?
No, but I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the June 4th meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, Jared Miller made the motion, seconded by Dean Hazen. Seeing no corrections, is there discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, so they are approved. Okay, now the next section is additions to the agenda, and actually there is a change in the agenda concerning item number 8, new business item A, which I understand is going to be dropped from the agenda because it's still under process of being resolved. Is that correct? Okay, so that's going to be one change that we will make in the agenda. Any other changes or corrections to the agenda? Thank you then. All right. Time for public participation.
Dennis, we need a motion to change
correct?
the agenda,
To
drop that item.
oh, all right.
I'll
Thank
make
you
the
then.
motion to drop that item from the agenda.
Okay, Dean Hazen makes the motion.
Second
Anybody
the
seconds?
motion.
Jared Miller makes the second. All right, discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item is dropped. We'll see it again at a future meeting. All right, public participation for the Township Board. Is there any at this point? I didn't get any cards specifically for the Township, so seeing no people approaching the public input bench, we'll call that to be closed. And now we're going to go to the next item, which is the committee to verify bills, Township Fund and the General Assistance Fund. Supervisor Danielle Chenoweth.
Thank you. So this month in the town fund, we have $121,000 and $21,037.77 in expenditures. General assistance fund is $73,991.56 in expenditures. The total is $195,029.33. As you will see, the town fund is significantly larger because this is Q4 social service funds, so there's a lot of social service expenditures in this last quarter.
Yes. Are there any other items in the town fund or the general assistance fund which perhaps need attention at this time?
No.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve these funds? Mary Alice Wu.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so I'm curious, I know that there was a report back in May in terms of social services. I'm wondering if now we are fully up to date and we've dispersed all the money that we allocated for last year.
Very close. Yeah, I think there's a couple of stragglers and also I need to, Rosecrans and Prairie Center merged. Rosecrans took over for Community Elements. And so I need to potentially, before doing disbursements, I may need a motion before the town board. So the Time Center grant is still outstanding, and I believe there's one or two others. But generally speaking, we reached out to everyone in June, and we got a lot of the other social service grants in. So
approximately how much is that? That's outstanding right now.
I can get that information for you. It's some AF drive. I don't have it
Okay.
before me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Bill Brown.
Yeah, on page 9, the emergency assistance, I noticed the last item for the, I guess, hotel reimbursements and housing authority reimbursements. That was paid in July, so will that be coming out of the next year's budget, and the rest of them will be coming out of last year's budget?
Let's see. Are you looking at the detailed expenditures?
Oh, it's page 9 of our packet.
Okay. Is it the details under emergency assistance?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, everything, we spoke with the accountant. I was hoping to actually have all of the bills come out of June, but there's certain bills that need to come out of July. And so the hotel assistance, the large hotel reimbursement is coming out of July. The other ones are actually as they come up, so they're usually rent eviction prevention, and they've happened throughout June. But CLA advised us that for this, it should be in July. So essentially, that since we do accounting on a cash basis, that's going to show up in the fiscal year we're in, which does affect the budget because it's a large number and it's about half of our emergency assistance that budgeted for the year. I do have an update on that that's relevant when we get to the supervisor's memo. So at this point, you know, if the board is ready to pass the budget as is, I'm comfortable with moving forward with that. We also discussed if you have additional questions based on some of the changes on the assessor's side, we can vote on it next month, and I can look and see if there's an adjustment that's needed.
Okay, and then one other question on page 4 of the packet on training. For the tuitions, is that looks like 3 or 4 classes for 2 different people maybe? There's, this is,
Could you answer that question?
Our Assessor Wayne. 6710, 6730, and 6731. Are those the numbers that you're,
For future.
are those these?
no, this is page 4 under accounting code 6110 training.
All right.
Okay,
And-
so the IAAO courses that would be
Yeah.
for 2 people, and the IPAI, Illinois Property Assessment Institute, would also be for 2 people.
2 people for how many courses? I think they're usually 300 or 340 each, right?
300 each, but
So-
one of them is 340.
Okay. And each of those courses that are 300 or 340, they'll get 15 hours credit for?
Right.
Okay. Just clarifying
Except
that.
the IAAO courses are 33 and a half hours.
Okay, so double the amount.
Yes.
Okay. And so have you hired someone then?
I have. I've made 2 hires. I wanted to address it in my report.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, yes, Dean.
Wayne, if I can ask a question of you. So these 2 people that you hired, I'm assuming based on the courses that they're taking that they don't have much experience because these are all like intro and fundamental courses. Is that fair to say, or?
Yes. So, well, actually, Laura has experience. However, she's not. She doesn't have a current CIO designation, so she has to start that process over to get the designation.
So Laura has some experience,
Right.
and then Tanmay, is it?
Yes, and that's why, like, for the Illinois Department of Revenue courses, she's going to do those home study, whereas Tanmay is going to go and actually sit in the course.
Does Tanmay have any experience?
No, Tanmay does not have any assessment experience.
So we terminated 2 people that were highly experienced, and now we're paying around $9,000. Do I have that right, to re-educate 2 people? Am I correct?
Roughly.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, Eric.
Well, I think it's more like most of the training and most of the travel is also associated with training, as I understand it.
All of the travel is associated
Right.
with training.
So you were kind enough to share a spreadsheet to calculate this, and this is really getting down in the weeds. It may not make much more than a few $1,000s difference in this large budget, but you had each person was going to do 5 round trips to Chicago, 5 round trips to Rockford, and 5 round trips to, I think, Springfield.
Well, that was, so where the classes are, only the classes that are scheduled through the end of the year, I can tell you exactly where they are.
No.
Not all of the classes, obviously classes for next year, but
No.
are included in this budget,
But-
I don't know where they're gonna be. So right now, the classes, like, they're gonna be in Peoria, Collinsville,
Mhm.
and, Peoria, Collinsville, and a northern town, Naperville.
Well, you mentioned, I think, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but you had 15 out-of-town trips for each person, I think, yeah, as I read your spreadsheet.
Okay.
So is that, I wonder if that's actually the way it's going to be, or would it be fewer than that? Because you multiplied the round trip for each driving by 5 for each person.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Laura would be taking 6 courses, TMA 9, and then I would be taking 4.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is just a draft, but I would suggest doing a more exact calculation with how many trips you actually expect, because it didn't quite add up to me.
Well, each class is its own, is a trip, like. so I'm
Yeah,
like-
but it's not 15 per person. is
No,
it?
no.
Well, but
it's-
that's what you had in your spreadsheet. It was 15
In the
per
spreadsheet I just gave you?
Well, in the spreadsheet that I looked at, electronically earlier, maybe that's changed now.
So would you expect
Okay.
carpooling?
Yes,
Okay.
So people would be sharing
Yeah.
transportation?
Well,
yes.
Mary Alice, woo.
I'm just wondering, we're discussing the bills right now, right?
Correct.
Not the
oh,
future?
not the budget, okay.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, we're wandering, thank you.
Okay,
You're helping us get back on track.
Further budget comments. Thank you.
All right, so we're talking about the town fund and the general assistance fund. Other comments? Is there a motion to approve the town fund?
I'll make a motion that we approve the town fund and the general assistance fund.
Okay, Jared Miller and Aaron Ammons. Okay, thank you for making that important distinction, Mary Alice Wu, and get us back on focus. All right, those in favor, if there's not any discussion about these, those in favor of approving the town fund and the general assistance fund indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so they are approved. Now, reports of officers. Wayne?
All right, I'm gonna go first since I'm already here.
All right, you might as well indeed.
So the township assessment books were completed and turned over to the county assessor. The tax cycle for 2018 remains on time, and we have a month-to-month timeline for 2019 work. Prior to beginning next year's work, Cunningham Township will need to update our CAMA software. Cunningham Township has Visual PAMS Pro software purchased by the prior assessor. Unfortunately, it's not been updated or kept current in spite of the township board approving expenditures to do so. Cost factors have not been adjusted, and new properties were not calculated in that software. Prior staff elected to continue using the 2011 version of ICAS, which is the free software provided by but no longer supported by the Illinois Department of Revenue. The decision required manual factoring on every property record as assessments were processed this year. PAMS Pro, Saron Computing will charge an additional fee to migrate data into that software we currently own in order to correct the neglect. It's critical that our software be brought up to a current status irrespective of the software ultimately selected for our township. Champaign County is progressing with plans to purchase a new tax cycle CAMA software. As of right now, it's unclear what the specific timeline is. Preliminary information regarding computer hardware requirements to run the new software or to migrate current software to an online capable status has indicated a fairly substantial required investment for potentially a server and maybe new office computers. While the decision to recommend purchase of this new software remains undecided, the fiscal year 2019 budget already submitted to this board has been adjusted upward to accommodate the required software and hardware expenditures in either scenario. And I provided each of you a scenario, whether we stay with the current software or migrate toward new software. It's important to recognize that the purchase or upgrade of software, the purchase of hardware, and the administrative expense of migrating our data to the new systems will bring us closer to our goal of improving speed and accuracy of assessment work, as well as improving taxpayer access to our data online. At the same time, the purchase of new hardware and software will keep Cunningham Township linked to the county systems to maximize efficiency, as well as taking us to a paperless operation.
Okay, thoughts? Mary Alice Wu.
So you just said that it's important to maintain transparency and access for the data online, and I thought, because I actually just looked this up the other day, are there multiple systems that provide that information? I know that the Champaign County
Yes.
Assessments Office does that. What is the
So-
Township Cunningham do?
So the Cunningham doesn't provide anything online itself. What Champaign County provides is, as far as assessment records go, all they provide is the value. They don't provide anything else other than what the assessed value is, the ownership information, recent sales information. But as far as like attributes about a particular property, square footage, stories, any type of factors that are applied, that's not on there.
Is the proposal to include that?
Eventually, we hope to get to that, to that, where we can do that.
So if that's the case, is it important that we have the same software that corresponds to the county so that that information can be?
Not necessarily. For example, Decatur Township provides that level of information online. They use visual PAMs, and they have a custom website that was built for them, whereas Decatur Township, which is in Macon County actually uses DevNet. So it's not necessarily required to have the same software.
All right, thank you.
Okay, but is it advantageous?
Given what I know about the potential costs, I don't necessarily believe that it's worth the extra money to go that direction with DevNet. But like I said, this purchase is still a couple months away, so maybe I'll learn more to better answer your question.
And then Eric.
So we're looking at a significant increase from previous year, but on the other hand, we're looking at significant upgrade of capabilities. So one of the things that I think would be helpful, I'm trying to figure this out item by item. One of the things that would be really helpful is how much of the increase is a one-time cost as opposed to a recurring cost. So
Approximately $40,000.
40,000 is one time, do you think?
Yes.
Or- okay, that would be 40,000.
Well, okay.
With the
so-
PAMS upgrade.
Right. If we were to stick with PAMs.
Okay, and on the other hand, so 40,000, well, plus the 25,000 increase in the IMRF contribution. That's also a one-time
Right.
to catch up on that. So it's about 65,000 is one time, and because the travel and training is mostly one time, the administrative services are practically all one time. That's
Yes.
for digitizing the computer software, whether it's 8,000 for PAMS or 18,000 for DevNet. That's, well, let's see, is that one time or is that?
Yes.
That's one time, okay. Okay, yeah, because then there's an annual, probably there's a software maintenance cost, but I'm not sure where that is. Okay, so the most of the increase, the great bulk of the increase is one time. There's not much in here that's actually a recurring cost. So we would expect that in FY20, we'll be back pretty close to where we were
Yes.
in FY18.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill Brown.
I'm still kind of trying to figure out why we would need to scan a lot of paper records. And so first, start with Pam's.
Well,
They've had this in the office for a long time. They've been paying $4,000 a year maintenance on it, but they just haven't been using it.
right,
So there's no digital records. Everything's on paper.
for the most part, yes.
So those paper cards, were they manually created, manually updated, or did they come out of Pam's at some point?
Well, no, so some of them came out of PAMS. The majority came out of ICAS, which is software provided by the Illinois Department of Revenue. But it's software that's really not supported anymore. And because, so what they didn't do, and what I mean by they used the 2011 version of ICAS, they didn't advance the tax year. And because they did that, every time you put in a new property, it requires manual factoring to get the cost current.
Okay. If there's any digital record at all, it's probably going to be better than trying to scan paper and
Well,
turn it into
I
digital.
agree with you, but if you were to go online, we're going to have just the digital record. So then we're going to be in a position where some of the township is online and some of the township isn't.
No, I'm just saying that in order to convert it, sometimes it's
I
easier
see.
to export something from some previous software version. Get it all in the same system, but just how you get it in there. But, you know, if you're confident in that method, but you're also welcome to consult with probably the city IT department if you need additional consultation. So with the $8,300 for PAMS under computer software, so even though we've been paying this $4,000 a year, they won't upgrade it unless we pay them $8,000 this year?
It's more than about upgrading, it's about building a new database. So it requires to get we have to basically start from a new starting place.
So that $8,300 includes some kind of support?
Right,
that
so when you
helps migrate the database?
Right, so when the township originally purchased PAMS, it was $22,000 that was approved by this town board. What that paid for was creating a database that involved importing data from ICAS and from the county AS400 system. They have to do that again, basically, and we're gonna start from zero, basically. And so that's what we're paying for. So like for example, I have 7 years of unopened update disk in my office, unopened, right? Because they weren't opened, and I believe I showed it to you and Eric.
Yeah.
And instead of upgrading, we're going to start from the whatever the latest version of PAMS is.
Okay. Yeah, it just depends how the software vendor works, I guess. Usually, or a lot of times when they'll do upgrades, but the upgrades will be inclusive so that
Right, and
you'll have a full version, even if you skipped a version here or there. Whatever the latest one is would be a full version. I did have some other questions on the travel. You just gave us this sheet tonight, so I'm still kind of looking at it. Okay, so what's the CAE? CIAO and CAE, what's the difference?
The CIAO, it stands for Certified Illinois Assessing Officer. That's a designation given by the Illinois Property Assessment Institute. The CAE is a designation by the International Assessing Officers Organization. And the CAE is one of their designations. It stands for Certified Assessment Evaluator.
And as far as the requirements for your office, you're only required to have 30 hours every 2 years of continuing education, is that right?
What was that, 30 hours every?
30 hours every
Yes.
2 years?
Right.
And so you've scheduled, looks like, 111.
Right, and that was to begin
Hours.
the process of getting the CAE designation, and part of that is because what we want to do is we want to go from what's primarily a cost-based assessment system to a sales regression-based assessment system. That's not taught in the IPAI coursework currently. That is taught in the IAAO coursework.
Okay, and that couldn't be spread out. You're going to be able to do all that in 1 year?
No, so what I've scheduled is 3 classes for this fiscal year. And then subsequent fiscal years, it'll probably be 2 or 3 classes. It's about 9 different things you have to do, courses and demonstration appraisal. This is year 1 of probably a 3 or 4 year effort.
And this, so the income approach to valuation isn't taught in the CIAO classes?
Not in the same detail as taught in the IAAO courses.
And do the IAAO courses, are those taught in Illinois, or you have to travel somewhere for those?
We may have to travel, but we're in the process of forming an organization, Illinois chapter of IAAO, and we're really hoping to get that here.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Others? Do we have other questions for Wayne at this time? All right, so that's reports from
No,
officers. No? We do have a question. Yes.
We're talking about the budget, right? The current budget. Okay, so
Yeah.
I had brought this up. I want to say to Wayne, thank you very much for your time, both today and previously meeting, talking about the budget. I brought this up to you today, so I'm going to just bring this up to council for now. Right now, we have budgeted for 3 full-time people in addition to Wayne, and one of those positions is not filled at this time. We have a lot of kind of upfront costs right now for training because we have new employees coming on board, which I understand. So I would like to propose that we decrease the salary line a little bit just to buffer some of the additional training costs because that person is not in place right now. So whether it's 1 or 2 months, 1.5 months, what have you, it'll still save us about $4,000 to $6,000 depending on how you calculate that, which would offset some of the increase in the training and the travel increases that we have now. So that was something I talked with you about today. I wanted to bring that up to the board to see if they had any ideas on that.
Did you want to offer
Yeah, go ahead.
a specific amendment?
I don't know if we haven't gotten to the point of having
We don't have a
right,
motion
we don't
yet.
have a motion on the board to approve this right now because we're still under conversation. I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Well, yeah.
All right, so first Aaron and then Eric.
So, Mary Alice, are you saying that the salary that would be offered to the vacant position be decreased? I'm trying to understand what salary decrease are you speaking to?
So right now, we've budgeted, so the budget on file is $127,600, right? One of those positions out of that is not filled. So we don't need $127,600 to pay the existing employees, nor would we need that if we hired a new employee, because that person isn't in place right now. Right. So my proposal is we've been talking a lot about training and so forth, and it is a lot of money increase than we've had in the previous years. One of the ways to offset that a little bit for this year is I'm not proposing that we decrease it next year. We need to pay the person what they're worth. But we're not going to be paying them at minimum for July, right? And so if we take the I don't know what that amount is. We'll have to calculate that amount. So if 1 month's pay is, let's say, $5,000, including FICA and all that other stuff, then I would propose for this year we decrease $127,600 by $5,000 to take into consideration that we are not employing somebody for this month.
And if this is going to be a budget, I don't know where the savings actually come from. Because the money is already in a pool, basically, right? So I don't understand how we're saving anything.
Can I interject?
I don't understand.
All right, so, all right, Dean Hazen.
So you're not suggesting that we decrease the budget for that payroll? You're saying that we're not going to use the budget for a month or two for that payroll?
No, I'm actually proposing that we decrease the budget by the amount that we would pay somebody for July for this fiscal year, because it would decrease the total amount in the budget. So rather than spending $304,598 on personnel, perhaps we spend $300,000 on personnel. I know it's a small amount of money. I'm just making that proposal.
Eric Jacobson.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think if I understand you rightly, Mary Alice, you're saying let's have the FY19 budget reflect the expected expenditures in FY19.
Exactly.
And so that would include 2 full-time people, and then the third person will be for part of the year. And so the budget should reflect that as whatever the best estimate is of when that third person might come on board.
And then that would be a budget amendment that we would make in the future to adjust for the hire. Is that correct?
Well, we're just discussing a draft budget now, so
Yes.
so we won't adopt a budget really until next month. But then suggesting that the budget next month be, really as precise as possible about what are the expected expenditures, and then of course we may have to do a budget amendment after that.
That's
if
what
we
I'm
don't-
saying.
But that what we see in August should reflect whatever the expectation is of that third person coming on board, and the salary for that person should be for part of the year.
All right, other discussion? We don't have a motion yet on the floor, so, concerning the annual budget.
So we're doing all this for $5,000?
We've been talking about training, so, I figured we could, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
$5,000.
what we should probably do is make a motion about the budget, and then perhaps an amended motion, or an amendment to the original motion.
Do we need it because it's draft, though?
Oh, all right, it's too soon for a final version, though, right? So, this is just open discussion, we're not going to not adopt the draft at this point. I see what you're saying. Mary Alice?
So the clerk has informed me that we were still on officer reports and actually not on discussion of the budget. So I'm not exactly sure how we rectify that situation, but
All right. We've wandered again.
we've wandered again, and I think I was part of that wandering, so.
Well, we had Wayne in the seat, and we were asking him questions. We should have waited for him to finish his commentary, because, yes, unfinished business is number 7.
Well, Danielle's probably going to have a report, too.
Well, all right, so anybody else wish to make a report beyond what we've heard tonight? Thank you.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Before you use the supervisor's memo, let me just call it my digital version. There's a couple of things that are important to note. So I have stats for general assistance and homeless assistance. I want to note that in the budget, we have budgeted for 125 general assistance participants. We're at 110. And I do intend to spend the next 2 months auditing all of our assistance participants. 50 of them are homeless, and I want to make sure we have a number of chronically homeless individuals on general assistance, which I am happy about and I welcome, because they are the poorest of the poor in our community. I think my question is, are there individuals who would be best served by City of Champaign Township? I met with Andy today, and we talked about last known address as criteria. Unfortunately, his office does not provide general assistance to people who do not have active SSA applications. But we are training his office in doing that application process over this next month. So we're hopeful that essentially both offices can help people get on Social Security payments, which pays us back, and he can take the folks who have last address in Champaign. Our rules say that if you're homeless in Urbana for one night, you are homeless in Urbana. Those are our rules that come from township officials of Illinois. So essentially, there's ambiguity with the chronically homeless who migrate across Wright Street. So I'm just bringing up that we're close to cap on that, and I am working to kind of manage that. It's possible we could go over. At this point, I'm not going to increase general assistance. I budgeted for $275 a month. I think people deserve that because they haven't seen a raise in a long time, but I'm not making that change until I'm finished with the audit. The homeless assistance program started 6 months ago. We have, this last month, we served 33 residents, which was a very large amount. We had many applications. We actually could not keep up with our walk-ins in terms of tracking, but we had hit the 100 mark. So We have supported 211 residents representing 78 households. Of the 211 residents, 114 of them are children. With the budget, I just have a couple of things. I provided the revised budget with recent changes from the assessor in PDF format. You might find that easier to look at tonight. That was sent an email on Sunday. I suggest that we either pass the budget now as is or with minor changes if you want to kind of stick with Pam's as the model and then come back if we need to migrate to DevNet, or take this month to review the changes and bring it to the board for a vote in August. We have till September to change the budget, so I just want to offer that unlike City Council, the town board has some flexibility. I do want to say, just on the topic of the assessor hires, I wanted to make clear that the assessor hire, as reported in the News Gazette, was done by committee, and that included the mayor of Urbana, myself as supervisor, the assessor from Decatur, Danville, the other D, the assessor from Danville, and the Cunningham Township assessor. There was a number of applications. They were winnowed down to a handful we interviewed, and the two finalists, one is Laura Sandiford, or the two that received the offers, and those were consensus upon by the committee, was Laura Sandiford, who served on the Board of Review and has extensive experience, is really, in my opinion, overqualified for a deputy assessor position, but she does need the training. And the second is a financial engineer from the University of Illinois, who is probably one of the best people we could have on our team to do the help with a digital migration. Very qualified and very competent financial analyst and statistician. Very few people are actually trained in assessment, so when we bring folks in, the training will be necessary. I also want to note that their salaries are significantly less than the outgoing, so there is some savings there. In terms of...
Excuse me.
Yes?
I just wanted to ask a question. So you highlighted the committee that oversaw the hiring process. Is there a committee to oversee the hiring process for you as well?
There would be with the open hiring process. We haven't had open hires. I had an open hire for a case manager, and at that time, I had a committee of two. It was Vasilia Clark, who was the personnel director here, and myself, and I consider it to be best practices for it to be more than one person, so that would typically be my approach. I don't know if I would invite the mayor on every committee because she's very busy, but certainly we retain Vasilia Clark as our HR specialist, and she would help with all hires on my side.
I just wanted to ask because I had never heard of that type of thorough process of any department head or any elected official needing to go through that degree of committee to hire someone that they have every right to hire. So I just thought it was interesting that you would be so thorough and to share all that information, because I don't hear anybody else go through that when they hire people. So I just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah. It's my experience in the nonprofit world that we've always hired by committee. Also, when I ran a business, we hired by committee. Obviously,
I'm not saying that it's not a best practice. I'm just
Okay.
saying it just became implemented recently.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
I actually would like to see all public officials go through a hiring process that's open and transparent and includes a committee. I think that actually is the direction we should go to, which is why I instituted it in my office when I first came in last May.
Thank you.
So with social service funding, just a note, as we go into, you're going to actually discuss this in the council meeting. You are scheduled to take a final vote on social service allocations. I encourage you to vote this month if you can, so that we can begin to prepare contracts with agencies. This is the time of year we typically do that. I do wholly support the motions that were made by council at your June 25th meeting. In addition, I would suggest two motions, which I put in the memo. I just want to highlight those for you as we go into council. But these are motions that come from Township Supervisor. The first is a motion to provide the $8,000 to Family Service Meals on Wheels program, which was in your initial spreadsheet, contingent upon providing at least a 10% fee waiver to Urbana residents who demonstrate need. That was the recommendation, and I don't think it became a motion. So just put that in your cap for the next meeting. Also, I'm suggesting a motion to set aside $22,500 for emergency shelter for women and women with children. And we can discuss that. I will stay for the council meeting, but I just wanted to highlight that in my memo. This is an important announcement. We have a homeless assistance program, as you know, that provides rental assistance, eviction prevention, and it has provided hotel vouchers. It has been at a pilot stage for 6 months. We have chosen to pause the hotel voucher portion of the program and to continue with rental assistance and eviction prevention. These are the 3 reasons that we've done that. The first is cost. The cost of this program has escalated steeply due to an increase in number of cases. Hotel choice, we moved away from hotels deemed unsafe or unsanitary, and it almost doubled our prices. And a larger number of families without income and poor work histories coming in the front door. We have seen I would basically say the township feels a lot like an emergency room when it comes to homelessness. The number of people who are in desperate situations with children who have been invisible in our community largely because they're afraid to lose their children have trusted the township enough to come at our front doors and ask for support. But because we have a gap in service, we really anticipated that 30 days in a hotel max would be sufficient time to place people in emergency family shelter. It's taken between 2 and 10 weeks to place participants, and it leaves us with a decision to either continue to extend their stay or render families actively unsheltered before entering emergency family shelter. That lack of coordination and the lack of places to place people. We only have 8 units in emergency family shelter. We typically carry 12 families a month, and that's just for Urbana. We're very careful to screen for Urbana eligibility. So my guess is if this program were really met the need, there might be 40 families across Champaign and Urbana that are actively unsheltered with children every single month. And so we need to, and this gets to the 3rd reason, we want to free up resources to fund cost-effective shelter expansion. We are currently working with emergency family shelter collaborators on a proposal to significantly expand shelter options. And the proposed budget for next year sets aside $50,000 for this purpose. That's really not possible unless we curtail the hotel voucher program. So just wanted to announce that. We've had a lot of difficult conversations the last 2 days, and going forward, I'll be announcing it at the COC tomorrow. That does not mean the need goes away. So I really look forward to working with you on addressing the fact that there are desperate families living in Urbana with children in cars, in storage units, in unsafe conditions, tripled and quadrupled up in houses, in basements, on dirt floors. It is something that I think most people in this community would not believe. So, another note, I'd like to introduce you, invite you to the Open Scene Open Mic. It is a spoken word extravaganza happening at the Cunningham Township Garden on Wednesday, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. I would love to see board members there. I think we didn't see anyone last time. If you have something to share, Aaron, and you're a spoken word poet, we'd like to see you contribute your talents. Shea Robinson, who's host Speak Cafe, will be hosting. And we will have called 150 participants, inviting them to participate by the end of tomorrow. So we're hoping to see a nice mix of participants and community. There's free barbecue and free food. We ask people to bring a dish to pass. And then last thing is, I just want to say that Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office strongly supports and applauds cooperation between the City of Urbana and the Housing Authority of Champaign County and their proposed partnership to provide permanent supportive housing for the disabled. Those waiting disability determinations, which is many of our folks, and those living on $750 to $1,000 with SSI, SSDI. This population is extremely vulnerable to homelessness and the mental health and mortality risks that come with living without a home. So I encourage you to accept the intergovernmental agreement at the City Council meeting that you will have next. Any questions?
Okay, you get a good opportunity to ask questions. Mary Alice?
I have just one really quick question. So I believe when you look at the numbers of the people that we've served, the homeless assistance since the program started November 17th, is a cumulative number, 211 residents, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
And so does that mean that it's a cumulative number for the general assistance participants of 110? Or is that just
That's
who are on the
just-
rolls this month?
That's just active. Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so the total for the year, I just looked at this today, was 157 general assistance participants for the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Others? Okay, I don't think we have any. Thank you very much, Danielle.
Okay. I'll sit tight if you have any questions on the supervisors or administrators side of the budget. Otherwise, I can pass it back to Wayne if you have additional questions.
Sure. All right, that concludes reports of officers. We're going to go into unfinished business, and this is ordinance T 2018-06002, an ordinance approving the annual budget and appropriation ordinance fiscal year 2018 to 19. So we've heard quite a lot of information already about the proposed township budget. Is there a sense of maintaining it in the township? Is there anybody who wants to make a motion? Do we feel like we're ready to make some kind of decision about this budget? Is it too soon?
Yeah. Well,
Yes, Eric.
I think the budget, the assessor's budget as it's contained in the ordinance is actually a little different from the budget we've been talking about. So it seems to me that that we should, hold it in township for a month and let that document be finalized in the version that we would vote on based on the discussion, would be my thought.
Okay, Mary Alice, and then Erin.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be nice to have a clean copy. I really appreciate all the details that everybody's been providing. One question I had for Danielle is you had mentioned that you wanted to do an audit in terms of the amount of money that we're providing for GA in the current budget. It has an increase of $10 per month. So I'm wondering if we did hold it for a month, if that would give you ample time to look and do that audit so we could have those final numbers for when we look at the budget next month.
Yes, I mean, ultimately what an audit means is bringing folks in via appointment where there may be uncertainty. So an audit means employment verification on everyone where I run it digitally. It means looking through and seeing to make sure everybody is completing their work fair. It includes looking at everyone who's outside, who last known address may have been outside Champaign. So I can do all the paperwork side. I may not be able, we're running 3 weeks out for appointments. So in terms of bringing appointments in, I don't think the audit would be totally complete, but I'll certainly have better information.
Okay, sounds like a lot of work.
And I also just would like to, I did this before, but I'd like to do it again and look and take a longer frame to look at the assessors, the supervisors, and the administrative funds and how they've changed over, I think I looked at 3 years, which is what in QuickBooks. I'd like to look out more like 6 to 7 years and just see what the, especially because we're looking at deficit spending, the thing I'd like us to not do is to commit to regular expenditures that we can't sustain. So essentially a lot of what we're looking at are one-time expenses. There are one-time expenses in the GA side where I've increased staff, but I've only made a commitment for a year for that staff person. I've used GA savings to leverage other entities and agencies to come to the table on emergency shelter. So these are kind of like one-time expenses, but you'll look and you'll see that personal allowances, just alone, the budget exceeds what we're bringing in on the GA levy. And part of the issue is that the town board, and I understand why you did it, is that you saw that there were, you went from 175 people on the rolls to 26 under the former supervisor. You saved a lot of money, and you said, oh, let's cut taxes. That would be good for taxpayers. Now, they probably only see a savings of like I think I had a $3 savings that year. So I don't know if it was really that significant. It was like a latte or something. But I think what it meant for the township is that we're now kind of stuck under tax caps. And as we actually bring the general assistance rolls up to their historic levels, we would be in a situation after we burn through savings of, having unsustainable fund. And it's actually an entitlement. GA is an entitlement. I can't say, oh, I'm out of funds, I can't fund GA anymore. By law, we provide GA. And I can change the rules and I can constrain them, but I can't just be out of funding. So I think it's important for us to look at how we can bring in additional money into GA, both with maybe some fee-for-service in addition to a small increase in the levy, which is what's allowed, and helping to get the folks on Social Security faster and get those reimbursements back.
Very good. Eric?
And so I guess the other thing that may impinge on that, I mean, you've asked us to put money aside for transient housing for women and children, but well, tell me if I'm wrong on this. I'm guessing that in the long run, that's going to save us money because you're paying hotel bills now in lieu of having that facility. So well, anyway, that's
It'll save
that's
us
a
all
context,
money.
yeah.
5% of the folks in jail report that they have no address. So it would save money across the board. Every time we have folks who are homeless, it's just a spiral downwards. But yes, especially with the township, we'll see a savings in that regard. It also is the case that we can fold some of that into social service funding in the future. So I don't consider us, the township, to need to carry $50,000 a year every single year for emergency shelter outside of social service funding. I think that's something that we can look at for a year or two.
So I mean, I guess that this is something in process, but does it look pretty promising that the arrangements for the transient housing for women and children is likely to happen?
I would say everyone is playing really well together.
Okay.
Yep. Of course, it has to go through boards and commissions and conversations. But I have met with every single party who would be involved, and I have initial commitments from all but one, the verbal commitments.
Thank you very much. All right, so is there a motion perhaps to hold the annual budget in township for another month?
I had a question.
Yes, Aaron?
So, with all the different moving parts here, I'm not quite sure what the difference is in what the assessor proposed and I'm not sure what number we're actually looking at, or even from the supervisor. So can we just at least clarify what that final number is that we're looking at from a budgetary standpoint?
Yeah, so to clarify, what is before you essentially is the budget that was put on file. It looks like this. It's got a narrative, and it's got the various pages. That is what's before you. What Wayne had sent you on Friday is, and today, he's broken it down so it's very clear what the budget would be if we migrated to DevNet, if the assessor's side, is it called DevNet? Yes. Okay. If the assessor's side migrated to DevNet, you have new numbers. There's also discussion before the board to tweak things, and what I would like from you today, if possible, also over email would be fine in the next week or two, is specific changes you would like to see in the final budget that comes. So essentially, I'll produce a final version of this for you that has all the numbers in it based on your input and Wayne's input. And I've given some input to Wayne on his budget as well. I've also asked for a reduction of salary and to see if there are other places, if we're going to go up, if we can reduce, because I'd like to not have such a deficit spending on the town fund, and I can do the same on my side. So we can do that piece to kind of squeeze to make room for DevNet if that's the will of the board. I would like some specific direction from you if there's some changes you'd like to make to this published budget. If you can give me a punch list, I'll make a budget for you, okay?
So for one thing, I think this is just a clerical thing, but I think the budget on file, if I remember rightly, didn't include the money for the digitization of the records.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that has to be corrected.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I will make a motion that we hold the township budget for another month.
I'll second.
Okay. Dean Hazen making the motion, seconded by Jared Miller. Discussion about this? Okay,
Can I just
yes.
request, which budget would you like? Would you like the budget that sticks with Pam's or the budget that goes with DevNet?
Well, so on behalf of our constituents, we'd obviously like the lower dollar one, unless that is, and my understanding is, and Wayne can correct me because I get it, my understanding from him, that they both do essentially the same thing. So the advantage to DevNet would be for the extra money that you would be part of a proximate user community of other governmental bodies that use DevNet, so that one could informally, I guess, share stuff. On the other hand, there'd be an extra cost to that. So I guess that I think whichever choice is made just should be made explicit what would be the basis for it, why it's the best way for us to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wayne's saying Pam's for now.
Hey, Pam's okay.
We can
Less
budget for
deficit
Pam's.
spending.
All right, so the
Pam's
So-
plus the digitization of records.
so it's heading in a different direction.
Okay.
All right, so perhaps now we're ready to make a voice vote on the motion to hold this in Township for one more month. Those indicating the willingness to do so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those who are opposed? Okay, so we'll hold this into Township, and we'll come back to this in a month with suggested corrections being sent to Danielle and specific questions and more information about either DevNet or PANS. All right, so now, under new business, the agreement with Google has been held back for further refinement. Therefore, and being no other items on the agenda for the Township Board, I call us adjourned. Thank you so much.